Chapter 81 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Prahalada, the son of Hiranya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hiranyakashipu became the father of four sons: Samrada, Anuradha, Hrada, and Prahlada. Prahlada, the youngest, was endowed with qualities which are the heritage of the Devas. He honored the elders. He loved Brahmins. His conduct was faultless. He was truthful and disciplined. He had senses under control. He loved all living beings. He had a good heart. He was a good friend to all those who were in pain. He would serve wise people like a servant. He would comfort the afflicted like a father would his son, his child. He would behave like a brother with those who were his equals in age. He had no ego and he was filled with humility. He was ever full of equanimity. In short, he was not in any manner fit to be the son of an asura, and an asura like Hiranya. Shukra, the guru of the asuras, had two sons by name Chanda and Amarka. They had been appointed by Hiranyakashipu to instruct Prahlada in the rules of conduct according to the code of the asuras. This was when Prahlada was 5 years old. Along with Prahlada, other asura children were also made to learn under the tutelage of these gurus. Prahlada heard the lessons taught by them and also repeated them to please the gurus, but he did not approve of them in his heart. Once, Hiranya took his son on his lap and said, "My child, you have been learning lessons from your gurus for quite some time now. Tell me what you think is the best thing in this world." Prahlada said, "My lord, people, I have noticed, are always caught up in the web of sorrow. I think it is because of their delusion caused by two things, I and mine. It is this false conception which is the cause of pain, and it is the surest path for the downfall of the Atman. According to me, the best thing in the world is to abandon the home, abandon all one's belongings like one would a well which has gone dry, and go to the forest. Take refuge in the feet of Lord Narayana." For a moment, Hiranya sat speechless. This was the last thing he expected to hear from the lips of a child of 5. He should have been angry, but he controlled his anger and laughed. He told himself, "My son is yet a child. He can only repeat what others tell him. What he said are the words of those who love Narayana. This is a favorite theme of theirs. Evidently, the child has been seeing some bhaktas of Narayana. I must not blame my child for taking such nonsense." Hiranya summoned the two gurus and told them, "See that the bhaktas of that Narayana, bhaktas like Narada and others, do not come near my child. Do not let him out of your sight. Let him stay with you in your house and learn from you." Hiranya obviously thought that the bhaktas of the Lord who were wandering around in the guise of ordinary citizens were trying to influence his son. By making Prahlada remain in the house of the gurus, he thought that the child would be saved from contamination from the bhaktas of Narayana. In the home of the gurus, the little boy was placed between the two sons of Shukra. With soft words and in a gentle manner, they asked him, "Child, how is it your mind works in a way different from the others? You are not like the other Asura children. Please tell us the truth. Are these thoughts your own, or have they been instilled into you by someone else? If so, who is that person? Tell us without fear. We will not punish you." Prahlada said, "I salute the Lord who gave me these noble thoughts. Listen to me, my lords, and consider the words with care. Man, in his ignorance, thinks of the differences I and mine. There is really no such thing. It is your delusion which makes you think that my own thoughts and those of others are different. When the Lord decides to bless a man, the man is rid of the duality which robs him of his power of reasoning, which duality involves him in this world of sorrow which is false. Unwise men think that the Lord is different and that man is different. Even great Vedantins have been floundering in this quicksand called ignorance. The Lord, who is beyond duality, has put these thoughts into my mind and no one else. Like a piece of iron is drawn irrevocably towards a magnet, my mind is drawn to him on its own accord. The Lord is the pivot around which my thoughts revolve endlessly. I do not know what good actions I have performed in my previous birth that I should have been fortunate enough to have this craving now for Narayana. The Gurus lost their temper. One of them said, "Bring a stick to beat this impertinent boy. He will only bring disgrace and discredit to us. He has a bad mind and he is like fire in the bamboo which will burn the entire family. The only way to bring him to the right path is punishment. In a forest of sandalwood trees, this boy is an alien tree. Narayana, the axe bent on destroying this wood, will use this boy as the handle." With threats of punishments, Chanda and Amarka tried to teach the young boy what they thought was the essential knowledge for an Asura prince. Some time passed. The Gurus thought that they had instilled in the child enough fear of punishment and that he had learnt all that they had taught him. They thought that they could now present him to his father, and so they took young Prahalada to the presence of Hiranyakashipu. The child fell at the feet of the father and took the dust of his feet on his head. With the tears of joy, Hiranya took the child in his arms and placed him on his lap. He then said, "You have learned so much from your Gurus now. Tell me something of what you have learnt and gladden my heart." Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapters 82 of Shrimadbhagavatam, the lessons which Prahalada learnt. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prahalada's eyes were thoughtful. He raised them to his father's face and said in a soft voice, "Father, I have learnt 9 important lessons which will help me." "And what are they?" asked the doting father. "They are," the child replied, "Shravana, listening; Kirtana, singing; Smarana, meditation; Padasevana, serving; Archana, praising; Vandana, worshipping; Dasya, slaving; Sakyam, friendship; and Atma Nivedana, surrender of the self." "Excellent, excellent," said Hiranya. "If we employ even one of these methods to serve me, you will be pleasing me immensely. You have learnt your lessons well." He turned his pleased eyes on the Gurus also, who in their turn looked happy and complacent. Hiranya looked at Prahalada with loving eyes and he caressed the young child. "Father," said Prahalada, "these are the methods of worshipping Narayana. The Lord, who is all-pervading, can be approached by any one of these 9 methods, and that is the lesson I have been fortunate enough to learn." The boy sat silent, and the father too, but only for a moment. Hiranya's anger boiled over and he turned his glowering eyes on the sons of Shukra and said, "What is this I hear? Is this the lesson I asked you to teach him? You are trying to ruin my child. I can see that you are not loyal to me. You are taking sides with my enemy, and you are teaching my child things which are worthless. I have been deceived by you." The Gurus were desperate in their attempt to convince the king of their innocence. They said, "My lord, this is not our doing. Please believe us. We did not teach him these things, nor did anyone else to our knowledge. It comes naturally to him. Please control your anger. Do not ascribe his impertinence to us. We are innocent." Slightly mollified by their obvious sincerity, Hiranya turned to his son and said, "Look, my son, they say that they did not teach you this arrant nonsense. Tell me then, who taught you these dreadful lessons which are sure to ruin you and me?" Unperturbed by the anger of his father, the child looked steadily at Hiranya and said, "It is not given to people like you to know the greatness of the Lord. People who are caught up in the possessions of this world, in the enjoyment of the senses, in going through the channels of pleasures, though they know that they yield no pleasures, are like blind men being led by another blind man. You perform the rites that are prescribed in the Vedas, the karma kanda of the Vedas, and those who ask you to perform them are as ignorant as you are about the truth. You think that the end and aim of this life is the gratification of your desires and your small, petty ambitions? Yours is indeed a pitiable state. So long as you do not take the dust of the feet of the persons who are attached to the things of the world, your mind will never lodge in the feet of the Lord, who is the only truth. It is only when you tear yourself away from this world that you can set your mind on the Lord. This desire for the Lord should come on its own accord. No amount of teaching by a guru nor the company of good people will help you to get into that frame of mind. Unless and until you abandon the thoughts of the worldly things, you cannot learn the lessons I have learned. Hiranyakashipu was speechless for a long moment. His anger was too intense for words to come out of his lips. He pushed the child rudely from his lap. He called out to his servants and said, "Take the sinner away from my presence. He should be put to death. He has no affection for his people. In my presence he has the audacity to praise my dread enemy Narayana, who killed my beloved brother. He sings the praises of Narayana. When I see this inordinate love he has for the Lord, as he calls him, I am sure this son of mine is none other than my enemy. He has renounced his father at the age of 5. He will not be of any good to me. When a son, though born of oneself, behaves thus towards his father, it is but right that he should be cast away like a dread disease. When a part of the body threatens to hurt the entire body, then the sensible thing will be to get rid of the offending part. Only thus can the body be saved. You think of him as my son, but he is my enemy. He is like a desire swelling inside the heart of a sage. If it is not destroyed, it will in its turn destroy the dwelling place. This child should be killed as soon as possible." In the presence of the king, his henchmen took up their dreadful javelins and tridents and began to hurt the child. Prahlada stood unmoved. His mind was far away with the Lord. A miracle was seen. The weapons were ineffectual in their attempt to wound the child. It was like the futility of a man's attempts to achieve something when he has not the grace of the Lord to bless his attempts. Amazed at the spectacle, Hiranya stopped the servants and said, "We will try other methods." Many methods of killing were tried. Prahlada was made to lie on the ground and wild elephants were made to walk on him. The king hoped that he would be crushed to death, but he could not be killed. He was thrown into a pit filled with serpents which stung him, but nothing happened. He was thrown to the ground from the top of a mountain, and he got up unhurt. They dug up a pit and placing him inside, it covered him with earth. He was not killed. They made him drink poison. They tried to burn him alive, but Prahlada continued to live. The king was desperate since he could not put to death the small, tender, young child of 5. The gurus approached the king, who was sunk in thought, and said, "In course of time the child may be corrected. We will take him with us and try once again. We will keep other Asura children also, and together they may be able to make him interested in the things which amuse them." The king sent Prahlada once again to the home of the gurus, hoping for the best. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Pranamastu. Chapter 83 of Shrimadbhagavatam. How he knew about Narayana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chanda and Amarka taught him about all the charms which beguile the mind of man. They also gave him lessons on dharma, artha and kama, and all the while his thoughts were on the fourth aim, moksha. During his stay with the gurus, Prahlada was with them bodily, but his mind was far away and never with them. Once the gurus had gone out and Prahlada was left alone with his playmates. They were all very fond of their gentle, sweet companion who was being ill-treated by his father. Even their gurus were ill-using the prince, and the children loved him all the more for it. Prahlada began to talk to his companions. unsullied as yet by hatred, and its kindred qualities which invade the mind only when one grows older, the younger boys were attracted by the talk of Prahalada. He said, "Listen to me, all of you. We are all blessed with these bodies and these wonderful minds. It will be a crime if we waste them. They are given to us for a purpose. The mind should be set on the Lord. The body should be used only for the worship of the Lord. Abandon the Asuric qualities which are your heritage and replace them with good one, like loving everyone, hating no one, having nothing but compassion towards all living beings. God will be very easily pleased and you will reach Him effortlessly this way. Think on Him, sing His praise, and we will reach Him easily." "How do you know?" asked the boys. "You speak so surely, as though you know for certain that it is the truth. Tell us how you know these things." "The Rishi Narada, a devotee of Narayana, taught me this," said Prahalada. The boys were puzzled. They said, "Ever since we were born, we have been together. We have known no other guru than the ones we have. When did you meet this Narada and learn so much from him?" Prahalada smiled and said, "Long ago, when my father had been to the mountain Mandara to perform tapas, the Devas, thinking that he was sure to meet his end on the mountain, began to fight with the Asuras in the kingdom. The Asuras were fleeing from the onslaught. The Devas entered my father's palace and looted it. Indra captured my mother. She was weeping and he paid no heed to her entreaties. Then, by chance, the sage Narada saw him and said, 'Indra, it is not right that you should carry away this woman. Is this the dharma which the gods observe? Shame on you. Abandon her, please, at once.' Indra said, 'My lord, you do not understand. I am not carrying her off with bad intentions. She has growing inside her an asura who is even now glowing like fire. I want to keep her with me until the child is born. After killing the newly born child, which if allowed to live will harass us, I will release her.' Narada said, 'You are wrong. The child that is to be born will not harass you. It will not be the cause of further distress to the Devas. On the other hand, it will be a devotee of Narayana and will be the cause of your later happiness and freedom from the father's tyranny.' Indra trusted the Rishi and his words. He released my mother and went away. Narada took my mother to his hermitage. He comforted her and said, 'You can live in my ashrama until your child is born, until your husband returns from his penance. You can rest assured that you can be happy here.' My mother was engaged in serving the Rishi during her stay in the ashrama of Narada. With me in mind, Narada would every day teach her the yoga by name Bhakti, the easiest path by which the Lord can be reached. And he would speak to her about the boon of knowledge, the ultimate truth, the realization of the Atman in one's body to be none other than the eternal soul, the Paramatma, the Parabrahma. She heard it all, but it did not stay long in her mind. But I heard it and have not forgotten it." Prahlada told them in great detail about the lessons he had learnt, and the path of bhakti appealed to the children naturally. When the Gurus came back, they found that the youngsters, all of them, were singing the praises of Narayana, and the chorus was led by Prahlada. They put a stop to it and proceeded with their teaching. But they found to their dismay that their words were making absolutely no impression on the children. Young Prahlada had converted them all to his way of thinking. In despair, they went to the presence of Hiranyakashipu and told him about the happenings in their house. The anger of the king was terrible. He decided that this was too much. The trouble which his little son was causing was not to be excused any longer. At first, it seemed as though he were just mumbling words which he had heard and whose meaning he had not grasped. Later it came to pass that he did mean what he said. He had the audacity to criticize his father's way of thinking and way of living. He had asked his father to abandon them. Hiranya had asked his myrmidons to put Prahalada to death, but they had bungled it. There were reports of miracles happening and about the boy being saved. Hiranya thought that they had all become soft because the victim was a child and they did not have the heart to be really firm with him. Hiranya decided that he would kill his son with his own hands. All the love he had for his son had vanished long ago. The fact that Prahalada was a staunch bhakta of Narayana was enough for him. The king made up his mind to put the boy to death. With a firm voice he shouted, "Bring that son of mine here to my presence at this very instant. I will deal with him and his impertinence." Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 84 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Final Encounter. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Shri Lakshmi Narasimhaya Namaha. Hiranya sent for his son, and Prahalada came and stood in front of him with folded palms after taking the dust of his father's feet. Hiranya spoke harshly to his son. He said, "You are a fool, a stupid fool. You are the son of a great king like me, and you talk highly of a mere deva who has not the courage to meet me in fight. I have put up with you and your impertinence all these days, but I now realize that you have become a menace. You will be the ruin of the entire house. You do not respect me and my words, and I have reached the limits of my patience. I am today going to dispatch you to the abode of Yama. Prepare yourself." The child stood calm and unruffled, as though the words of censure were addressed to someone else, and his imperturbable expression incensed Hiranya more. He bent his furious eyes on Prahalada, who was standing before him in the same respectful stance, and said, "I have had enough of your hypocrisy and this assumption of a false respect for me. You have been harassing me enough with praises of my enemy. How dare you continue to do what you have been forbidden to do? How could you pluck up enough courage to mention his name in my kingdom? I have decided to kill you." Prahalada's eye met those of his father. His were calm, while the father's were red and burning. There was a look of pity and sadness in the eyes of Prahalada. He said, "My father, you think that I am a bad son, but the truth is I am not. I only want to help you. Even now, if you listen to me, you will be saved. The Lord, Narayana, is the most powerful of all the gods. He is greater than all the devas, greater than Brahma the creator, greater than all the powers which are considered great. He is the glow which illumines the senses, the mind and the intellect. The world is created by him, sustained by him and destroyed by him. Please accept that he is more powerful than you. Lord Narayana is not your enemy. It is your own mind which is your enemy. It runs riot in wrong paths. Your mind is the enemy which has to be subdued and not Narayana. There is no greater enemy than a mind uncontrolled, unsubdued. Please subdue your mind. Infuse equanimity into your mind. Let your mind be rid of the dread qualities, raga, dvesha, love and hatred. That is the only worship dear to the Lord. You say you have conquered the 10 quarters. How untrue! You have not been able to conquer the 6 dread enemies which are inside you: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada and Matsara. When a man has conquered these enemies, when he has controlled his mind, when he has brought his senses under control, when he is wise enough to know that the same Atman is lodged in the hearts of all, can he have an enemy? You are your enemy, my father. Please conquer. You are your enemy, my father. Please conquer yourself. Hiranya was furious. He glowered at his son and said, "Indeed, you are very modest. You think you are wise enough to teach Dharma to your father, who in reality should be treated as a guru, honored as a god by you. But all that is beside the point. You say that there is a Lord who is greater than me. Tell me who he is and where he is. He is Narayana, my father, and he is everywhere, said the young child. He was unafraid, and there was not even the trace of fear in his voice or in his attitude. He stood with a calm look on his face. Hiranya could also detect the respect with which his son spoke to him. Only instead of pleasing him, it infuriated the Asura, since Prahalada's words were not pleasing to his ears. Everywhere? Asked Hiranya. His red eyes came to rest on a huge pillar in the council hall. He sneered at Prahalada and said, Is he then inside this pillar? Prahalada prostrated before the pillar and said, Yes, he is. I can see him there inside the pillar. Hiranyakashipu looked around the pillar. He looked up and he could find nothing. He said, I am now going to kill you. Let the Lord you speak of, your Narayana, come out to the pillar and rescue you from death at my hands. With a loud cry, Hiranyakashipu jumped down from his seat with a drawn sword in his hand. With his strong and powerful fist, he hit the pillar. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.